Now, now that I'm thinking about it, she might not be lying, because she did mention that I did not know about the self-destruct sequence. She thought she was lying, but she did mention about the electrocution. So there is a small possibility that she was lying all along, but I'm not 100% on that. Um, I can't believe that we managed to get ourselves imprisoned twice in 2 days, Hardrick says, and by animals and ogres to boot. If word gets out, we're going to become the laughingstock of this tournament. It has now been close to 6 hours since we teleported to our prison cell. I can tell because my stat device also shows me the hour of the day, in addition to my stats. Otherwise, it would have been almost impossible to find out how much time has passed, because not only are there no windows in our cell, but also no source of light whatsoever except for the small light coming from my stat booster screen. What does it get its battery from? I guess the mage's power, I suppose. For the past few hours, we have been trying to shake off the permanent paralysis effect of our prison cell, and to come up with a plan to fool the ogre guard into releasing us. So far, we have made no significant progress on either front. Darren and Hardrick managed to remove the paralysis spell temporarily by focusing all the magical energy by giving their muscles a powerful jolt, but they were barely able to move 3 feet before the spell was automatically cast on them once more. Of the 5 of us trapped here, I appear to be the only one that can move my hands, even if only slightly. Turns out the partial resistance to paralysis is one of the perks I get for being a Lasheti, along with a higher than average resistance to electricity. That being said, this newfound ability of mine hasn't really helped me much, except for being able to take the stat device out of my pocket in order to use it as a makeshift candle. Seeing that we couldn't free ourselves from the paralysis spell, we decided to shift our focus towards engineering a plan to have the ogres open the door and cancel the spell for us. Unfortunately, despite their renowned stupidity, the ogres were under strict orders to not let us go under any circumstances, and they were much too afraid of their captain to risk going against his wishes. Rose hasn't spoken a word since we got imprisoned. Iluna's betrayal must have really affected her. The rest of us aren't exactly in the best of moods either, but we are far from having given up. Since the ogres are afraid of letting us die of starvation because of our collars, we are expected them to bring us food sooner or later. At the moment they open the door, Darren and Hardrick use their muscles jolt technique and make a run for it in the short time they have at their disposal before they get paralyzed again. They will then find a control panel that cancels the paralysis spell, and will all be free to roam the stronghold at our leisure. It's not a perfect plan, but it's better than just roll over and accept our fates. I mean, they could also just slide the food under the door or whatever, so that wouldn't really work too well. That accursed Banshee, Darren says. I knew that from the beginning that she was plotting something. We were so heavily under-equipped for this mission that I had no choice but to accept Flower's help when she offered it. But now I'm starting to regret that I didn't listen to my instincts instead. Yeah, actually, I'm not so sure that she really betrayed us. Yeah, she did a number on. Yeah, I think I'm still of the mind that there's a possibility that she did not completely betray us. I'm thinking so. Actually, I'm not so sure that she really betrayed us. Have you gone daft? Darren asks me. Now think about it for a second, I tell him. When she was asked how to deal with us, she purposely omitted the fact that our collars are set to electrocute us if we distance ourselves too much from each other. She only told the shaman about a 5 days limit before she was just buying time. What if she was just buying time so that she could walk around the stronghold's premises unhindered in order to map out its layout? You're overthinking this, Barry, Darren says. It's probably just the fact that the collars would have exploded anyway after electrocuting us. Running out of the clock was likely the only way they could have could have killed us safely. Otherwise, unless she would have mentioned something else. I don't think that's true, Kid says. Even if we take into account the fact that the Lasheti are technically significantly more technologically advanced than any of the currently predominant races, there is just no way for such a small device could blow up the entire fort. If there really is a self-destruct mechanism implanted in these collars, I doubt that it could take out more than a room full of ogres. I think the Banshee knew this fact, and she was banking on the ogres' lack of expertise on this particular subject when she lied to them about it. I'm sorry to burst your bubble, Kate, but this all sounds like wishful thinking to me, Hardrick says. You don't really think that the Banshee is just going to show up here to open our cell, cancel the paralysis spell, and tell us that everything was her plan all along, do you? Almost immediately after the dwarf finishes his question, we hear one of the ogre guards from outside her cell shouting loudly. Halt, she says. You're not permitted to go any further. Turn back now, or the ogre stops mid-sentence, and the next thing you hear is a loud thump outside the door. Ha! I hear Araka's voice through the stone walls of our cell. The rogue must have been so focused on forming a coherent sentence that I didn't even notice his head being cut off. Do you ever shut up? Luna asks her. Hey, you let me out of this ambulance and promise you won't ever hear a word from me again. Araka says as she starts laughing. A few moments later, I can feel the paralysis slowly wear off as I start to regain control of our limbs. Shortly afterwards, a cell's door creep open and we see Luna standing in front of us with her usual displeased expression on her face. Well, what are you waiting for? She says. Get up. The chalice isn't going to steal itself. Seeing that none of us are speaking anything, Luna starts to speak again. The girl told you before coming here that she had a secret plan, didn't she? She says, well, that is that plan. I'm bursting you out. Now, come on. You shouldn't be lingering too much time in one place. Yeah, I'm not buying it, Darren says. I'm much more inclined to believe that your deal with the ogre didn't work out as well as you were hoping. Now you're trying to use us to get back at them. The proof is that you didn't tell us about your plan beforehand. I couldn't tell you beforehand, you oaf. Luna says, your reaction needs to be genuine when I betrayed you. The shaman can tell from your auras if you're actually shocked or just pretending. That is the reason why I had to put Flower to sleep. As a banshee, I am the only one who the shaman can't read because I am in a complete control of my emotions as well as my aura fluctuation. Oh yeah? Darren says, then why don't you wake the girl up then so she can confirm all this herself? The stasis I put Flower in cannot be undone forcefully. You're risking serious complication, Luna says. The spell usually lasts 2 days, so I didn't have time to wait for her to wake up before coming to rescue you. How convenient, Darren says. The banshee frowns. If you don't feel like breaking out of this cell, then I'll just take the others with me and leave you here to rot, she says. Oh, I'll come with you, don't worry, Darren says. But as soon as I get my sword back, you are in, world of hurt, I see. Luna says as she gestures her hand. All our weapons come floating inside of the cell. I'm not going to lie, that would be a bit problematic for me. Then gesture with the right hand towards us, and my dagger and crossbow are thrown into my lap. While at the same time, Kate's dagger gets thrown into her right hand. The banshee then grabs Darren's sword. She eyes him intently. Darren tries to get up, but the effect of the paralysis still hasn't completely worn off. Staggers on his feet. After looking at him for a few seconds, Luna decides to throw his sword at me instead. Hey, you take it, the banshee tells me. I need to have a decent head on your you seem to have a decent head on your shoulders. You know him better than I do. I'll decide whether to give him the sword or not, given the circumstances. Barry. Darren says as he gets up and starts walking towards me. Give me the sword. He got the look in his eyes. I know that look. He isn't thinking straight. He's going to attack Luna and I'll give him the sword, isn't he? And what am I supposed to do here exactly? Yeah, let's make him swear. I'll give you the sword on one condition, I tell him. You have to swear not to attack Luna with it. Again with this, Darren says, don't tell me that you actually believe her lies. It doesn't matter what I think, I say. Either way you look at it, this isn't the time to be fighting each other. Now are we going to swear it or not? Darren frowns at me. Fine, I'll swear it, he says. But only until we are at a safe distance from this ogre fort. Good enough for me, I say. I toss him the sword. As the five of us exit our cell, Luna makes a gesture with her right hand and a stone dislodges itself from a nearby wall. Darren's shield then comes floating out of the hole in the wall into Darren's hand. I don't understand, Darren says. Why did the ogres place my shield outside of a wall? Wait, what? The Darren shield that comes floating out of a hole in the wall. Why is it in a hole in the wall? Why did the ogres place my shield outside of the wall? They didn't, Luna says. It was stashed in the same place as all other weapons. I hid it here before unlocking your cell to make sure I had the upper hand in case you decided to challenge me again, like you did last night. Now then, if you're already all done here, I suggest we get going. I already found out where they're holding the chalice. Is that all? Rose asks with an uncharacteristically furious expression on her face, where a tear is forming in one of her eyes. Is this all you're going to say after what you did to us? I already told you, Luna says. I had to keep the truth from you in order to make sure that your reactions are genuine. It was all necessary to carry out our plan. Oh yeah? Rose says. And what about all those mean things you said before we got transported to our cells? What about when you said that I was too trusting for my own good and I was a fool for not having listened to Darren? Was all of that necessary too? As Rose finished asking her question, I see Luna's cold expression change for a brief moment. In that one moment, she almost seemed human. No, Luna says after a short pause. It was not. I only said all that because I wanted to get back at you for not letting me rest the other night. I overreacted. I apologize. The fury in Rose's eyes disappeared upon hearing Luna's words. She looks a bit confused. I don't think she was expecting such an honest apology. Well, as long as you don't do it again, Rose says. Araka starts laughing hysterically. Luna apologizing, she says, quick, find a place to hide, barricade yourself. The world we know, as we know, may as well come to an end. I told you to be quiet, Eluna says. Hey, if you want me to shut up, you can just close the amulet like you always do, Araka says. Oh wait, if you do that, you'll lose your precious map that we spent all of those hours in the library to put together. I guess you'll have to put up with me for a while longer then. I haven't really paid much attention to the semi-transparent magic hologram floating in front of Eluna until Araka mentioned it. Now I realize that it is in fact a miniature version of the ogre stronghold. Not only that, but there are also colored dots inside that are... What? What is happening? I haven't really paid much attention to the semi-transparent magical hologram floating in front of Eluna until Araka mentioned it. But now I realize that it is in fact a miniature version of the ogre stronghold. Dots moving and that are continuously moving. I can only assume that the moving dots represent the ogre patrols from the stronghold, and that the 6 dots standing in place on the upper level of the left wall must represent our own group. That's amazing, Kid says. The entire detailed hologram is being maintained by Araka? Yes, Luna says. We have spent a few hours in the library documenting the stronghold's layout in order to recreate it as accurately as possible. Araka's magical sense is powerful enough that she can easily detect all living creatures in an area, even if their auras are being masked by the pesky shaman spell. Also grants invisibility, so she can just display them as dots on the map. For all of us to see, with this much information in our hands, the ogre could not surprise us to have encountered no resistance while we cleaned out the entire floor and hid the bodies. Well, both of these questions are dumb. Why do dots have different color? To just specify different ranks of ogres and ourselves? Can Araka maintain the hologram if you close the amulet? She decides not to. Simple as that. I'll just go with that one. Why do dots have different colors? The blue dots are the mages, the red dots are the warriors, the green dot is the shaman, purple dot is the captain. Luna says, she can tell the difference? Kate says, yes. Luna says, if your magical sense is good enough, you can make distinction quite easily based on their level of magical power or even their unique aura signatures. Right now, we need to make it all the way to the lowest level of the main building where the treasury is being located. Hold on, Hadrick says. Before we get going, I think there's one more issue that we need to clear up. The shaman called you Eluna of Sacred Woods massacre earlier. And he said that you killed hundreds of animals without mercy. What was that all about? Who can answer that question, this question for her? Araka, swear if you don't shut up. Araka says, you'll what? Eluna doesn't say anything. That's what I thought, Araka says. So anyways, as I was saying, in order to better understand the event of the Sacred Wood Massacre, I need to tell you a little story first. It's a story about 3 young banshees that decided to take under my wing out of kindness of my heart a few hundred years ago. The names was Sidara, Inuri, and Eluna. It used to be Eluna's guardian? Hadrick says, no, I used to be her mentor. Araka says, I was the one being she looked up to the most. I remember the 3 of them once saying that they wanted to be like me when they grew up. That was before they really knew who I really was, of course. I spent years of my life teaching them everything I knew. I taught them how to defend themselves for banshee hunters, white mages. I taught them how to tell when their bodies are starting to reject them so that they could start looking for a new host in time. In other words, I taught them how to survive. That was awfully nice of you, Kate says with a frigid tone in her voice. I know, right? Araka says, it was all of a sham, of course. To tell you the truth, I was starting to get a little bored with the small amount of suffering I could bring to the world while trapped in a weak animal body at the start. So this time I decided to try something a little different. Spent years of my time making myself into this sort of motherly figure for the 3 young banshees, all in order to make it more painful for them when I inevitably betrayed them. But as time passed, my original perspective began to change. As I got to know the 3 banshees better, started to grow fond of Eluna. She was my star pupil after all, and she reminded me of a bit of myself when I was her age. So instead of simply having her killed along with the others, I decided to instead shape her in my own image. Araka, that's enough, Eluna says. But of course, in order to shape her into my own image, I need to utterly destroy her first. Araka continues, ignoring Eluna. So I started to teach her even more than I taught the others. I made sure that she knew all kind of obscure techniques and that she could control her water element to perfection. Then when the time came, I led them into one of the sacred woods. It was easy to get them to follow me. They all trusted me with their lives, and they didn't know that I was taking them into forbidden territory. For Inuri and Sidara were no match for the valiant guardians of the forest, and Eluna was not strong enough to fight all the animals by herself while also protecting her friends. Araka, I'm warning you, Eluna says. Oh, and Eluna was simply adorable, Araka says. Did I tell you? Back then, she absolutely refused to kill all other living creatures unless she had no other choice. She would be depressed for days after changing hosts because she'd been forced to end someone's life without their consent. Needless to say, even in a dire situation such as this, Iluna still refused to kill the animals and simply incapacitated them. I know this because I was watching the whole thing from above while laughing continuously. They didn't understand what I was doing at first. They kept calling for me, begging me to save them like I always did. They saw all the events unfold before their eyes, but their mind simply couldn't comprehend them. It was only when Inuri and Sidara got impaled that the cold hard reality finally hit Iluna in the face. As Araka speaks, I feel Iluna's aura starting to fluctuate violently. The first time I've ever seen her exhibit such strong emotions about something. Usually the flow of her aura is almost indiscernible from the air around her. I think the best course of action is to snap in front of Iluna's face, like really close, like snap, and then just like, okay, let's move on.